I hope your day is going well. And even if it's not as smooth as you would have liked it to be, just stay in there, stay focused. Know that you are so very blessed just to be able to be at home, if you are there taking care of your children. If not, wherever you are, no matter what situation you're in, whether things are smooth or whether a little bit rough, whether in the valleys or in some difficult situations, understand that we can have peace as we go through the highs and lows, and know that the Father knows all things, sees where you are, and can meet you there. So stay in and focused and just number and keep on numbering all the blessings you have. And honestly, when you do that, you come to find out that really things are so much better than what they seem, and won't be always difficult either. So stay in, keep in focused, and just think about all the blessings in your life. I'm Dr. Monica Du, and I'm a pediatrician turned homeschool mom and keeper of my home. On this channel, I love to share how you can be benefited from a whole food plant-based diet, health, nutrition, medicine, homeschooling, gardening, and so much more. In today's video, we're going into part 2 of my favorite wholesome picture books for children, but in this episode, we're going into a little bit higher level, into the upper middle elementary grades. Some of the books are at a more elevated level, and some of the topics would need a little bit more maturity to go through, but still, because the books are chosen and curated in such a way, the topics are discussed in a way that can be handled and managed, and the information is presented so well that it helps you to then talk about some of those topics. It helps you to introduce some of these things that may sometimes be difficult to go through. So join me today as we go through my favorite middle to upper elementary wholesome picture books. Grab yourself your favorite drink and come on with me. The first book is called A Weed is a Flower. This chronicles the life of George Washington Carver. The full title, A Weed is a Flower, The Life of George Washington Carver. This talks about his childhood from infancy all the way up through into adulthood and into his elderly years. He was born into slavery with difficulties that faced him even before he was born. His father was not alive in infancy for him to grow up with. His mother was also a slave, and shortly after he was born, while still a baby, his mother and himself were actually taken away from his master's plantation. However, his master was able to get him back after searching while he was still a baby, but his mother was never found. He grew up in their household, and they found that he was a very inquisitive child. He always wanted to know how things worked, what kind of plant this was, what kind of weed was this, and so many other things around him. And as this curiosity grew, he saw that he wanted to learn to read and go to school like all of the other children. But of course, as a slave, and at this time, it was not proper for children such as himself to attend school. So he grew and was actually known as the plant doctor, and people actually came to him even as a young person to find out information that would help them in terms of all the things about plants that he knew. He continued to grow and work hard, building money so that he would be able to make things better for himself. He eventually attended college and even was able to teach others and open up a laboratory where he honed in on his skills in botany and plant science, learning how to use plants in multiple ways. One famous particular area that he was known for is working on the peanut plant and how it could be used. How this could be used instead of just a focus on cotton, which would often be devastated by insects at that time. So he actually was able to turn things around for farmers and workers that had difficulties with their crops by turning their attention to other crops that they could then use in multiple ways. He became famous and was even offered much sums of money, which he turned down because he didn't do it for the money, but did it to really help people. He showed some great character qualities of kindness and perseverance. Some of the pictures so that you can see. The pictures are paintings, very simple and vibrant, and really take you in to the story. Some pictures show some difficulties that he faced here, but the information explains it well, and it helps you to have a springboard to explain difficult topics such as slavery. The pictures are quite lovely and really show well a little chronicling of his life and the things that people at that time went through. He worked hard even up until his elderly years, still seeking and finding ways that he could make life better for others. Next up is An Inconvenient Alphabet, Ben Franklin and Noah Webster's Spelling Revolution. I had spoken about the Noah Webster Dictionary in my part 1 video, so this was nice to get a little bit more insight into the man himself, Noah Webster, and then additionally, Benjamin Franklin in this book. Do you ever wish English was easier to spell? Ben Franklin and Noah Webster did. Once upon a revolutionary time, two great American patriots tried to make life easier. They knew how hard English words were to spell. They knew that sounds didn't match letters. They knew that the problem was an inconvenient English alphabet. In 1786, Ben Franklin and Noah Webster teamed up. Their goal, make English easier to read and write. But even for great thinkers, what seems easy can turn out to be hard. So this was an interesting story going through how Noah Webster and Benjamin Franklin teamed up together to try to make the English language more uniform, and some of the difficulties that they faced, as many people at that time did not necessarily want to accept change in the language that they were so used to. The pictures are very interesting and intricate. You can see that they are hand-drawn. They kind of have kind of a caricature appearance to them. And the colors are nice and inviting that they chose to use for the illustrations. So it was very interesting to see how things developed and how Noah Webster eventually came to create a dictionary that many people could use to cause a standardization of the language and the definitions of many, many words. So this is a nice book to use if you were wanting to add on for a unit study or just give some historical background about language in general as you study English and language arts with your children. The next one is called Watercress. Driving through Ohio in an old Pontiac, a young girl's parents stop suddenly when they spot something growing in a ditch by the side of the road. Watercress! With an old paper bag and some rusty scissors, the whole family wades into the muck to collect as much of the muddy, snail-covered plant as they can. At first, it's embarrassing. Why can't her family get food at the grocery store? But when her mother shares the story of her family's life in China, the girl learns to appreciate the fresh food they foraged. Together, they make a new memory of watercress in this tender story inspired by the author's childhood memories and illustrated by Caldecott honor artist Jason Chin. So this is another beautiful story, beautiful paintings. I like that the pictures, they really do draw you in and show you some of the emotion that the character was feeling. It really helps to bring stories like this that talk about how a character had a certain thought in the beginning, but then grew as the story went on and matured, putting behind the past thoughts that they had once had, once learning the importance of the things in life that really matter. So the family grabs that watercress. The little girl and her brother are not very interested in it. They have some challenging times as they try to collect it. And the little girl just does not want to be seen picking it. She's not interested in eating it. But her mother shares a story of what it really means to be a family in need, not having enough food to share, not having enough money, and really trying to appreciate what you have. And being happy when you're able to actually gain something to help yourself. There are some sad points in the story as the family shares some of the history that happened in their life. And as you can see, as the character reflects, she grows and she comes to find out that really she has to appreciate what she has and really be grateful that she has it. Next up is Priscilla and the Hollyhocks. Another book that has some difficult moments in it, but it is done in a way that is gentle and a springboard again for you to discuss difficult topics such as slavery and other historical events. Priscilla is a slave in the big house. The hollyhocks her mother planted by the cow pond are all Priscilla has left to remember her by. When master dies, Priscilla is sold to a Cherokee family. Another plantation, same life. Based on a true story, Priscilla and the Hollyhocks follows Priscilla from her early years on a southern plantation to her forced march along the Trail of Tears, to the chance encounter that leads to her freedom. On her journey from slave to free woman, Priscilla carries something precious with her, hollyhock seeds and hope. Another wonderful story discussing one's strength and perseverance despite difficulties. Also beautifully illustrated. It goes into the life of Priscilla as a young girl with her mother being sold away, and unfortunately she had not seen her again and was raised by others on the plantation that took her in, but they reminded her about her mother and the beautiful hollyhock she planted. So she would gather those seeds and plant some herself, making her own hollyhock doll that her mother used to make for her. Learning how to cope as a slave in the plantation, going through challenges, and being befriended by others in the house that just helped her to really get through things as her mother was no longer in her life. She's also befriended by a man named Basil Silkwood, a kind man that takes interest in her, and she meets later on down in a surprising way. After she has been sold to another family later on down the line. She gains strength and hope as she continues planting those beautiful hollyhocks and sharing the beauty on the land that she's now living on. The story also goes into another historical period where the Cherokee families were removed from their homes and forced to walk and walk and walk through difficult weather, transporting them to a place that they had not agreed upon, going through the Trail of Tears, another historical period at that time. She continues onward with the journey, and somehow she meets back up with Mr. Silkwood, who actually buys her from the Cherokee family that she is with, and he actually takes her into his house and raises her as his own child. She grows up and matures and actually stays on at the plantation that she and her adopted brothers and sisters lived on even through into her old age, still treasuring the memory of the hollyhocks and what she calls home. Next up was another interesting find. It's called I Walk with Vanessa. Story about a simple act of kindness. Now, this book is very good to read. Honestly, through all ages, as it helps us to see how it feels to be bullied and what we can do to stand up for others. This is a wordless book, which I have come across some really good finds. The pictures are very simple and they really help you to see the emotions of the character also here as well. You can see that this young girl feels left out. She seems to be in a new setting, in a new school, doesn't have any friends, and is all alone. She is being picked on by another student as she's returning home. The other students say nothing, but one particular one sees the incident happening and it really bothers her. But she hadn't done anything when it happened. The bullied student returns home and the other, on looking, really has some difficulties with what she's seen. She gathers up some of the other students, possibly telling them about what they could possibly do. She gets home and she continues to ponder. You can see the pictures well. And there they are, thinking in their separate homes. Looks like she gets a bright idea in the morning. She goes to the house of the girl that's bullied and just really takes her in as a friend, walking to school together, and then others join. It's a really lovely story showing what happens when you work together and what one simple act of kindness can do. All the children gathered together, and here is that guy that bullied her, feeling looks to be quite embarrassed by his behavior. It's a lovely story and wordless, so you can really bring in the little children as well on this one. But still, so nice to have picture books like this that are so powerful for some of our older students. Even they still enjoy picture books like this. This one is called Nesting, and the author Henry Cole, he has quite a few of these books with such beautiful drawings and impactful images. The pictures are so intricate. This one is actually a written book. In the spring, a robin sings to find another robin. Together they build a nest with twigs and grass. The mother robin lays the beautiful blue eggs. She will keep the eggs warm in the nest until they hatch into baby robins. The father robin protects the babies until they can fly on their own. The perils the babies encounter are many, including snakes and storms. The nest is always their safe place. Award-winning author-illustrator Henry Cole has recreated the life story of the robin with simple text and stunning artwork. Nesting is the perfect primer for young bird watchers and nature lovers. I was actually thinking about this author with another book that I shared in part 1 called Unspoken. That was his wordless picture book with such beautiful, intricate drawings similar to this, with that type of pencil drawing feel to it. Very simple, but really draws you in. where we see the building of the nest by the mom and Papa Bird, how they're getting it ready, and they begin their family. I really, really like how we have such minimal colors, but yet the pictures are so beautiful. So they're building their family, and the family is born. And they continue working hard to keep them safe and shelter them, going back and forth, bringing food and materials. But they are threatened by a predator as they see this snake coming up. And they fight together to get that predator away, and they do. Then the little ones continue to grow over time. They are protected until they're able to fly away to their own new adventures. Very beautiful book. And as it mentioned in the beginning of the book, very good for nature study and those that really enjoy nature. Another one from the same author is One Little Bag, An Amazing Journey. From a tall tree growing in the forest to the checkout counter at the grocery store, one little bag finds its way into the hands of a young boy on the eve of his first day of school. And so begins an incredible journey of a paper bag that is used and reused again. For a father, a son, and a grandson, the bag is transporter of objects and keeper of family memories, and when it is too worn to reuse, the family finds a meaningful new way for the much-loved bag to continue its journey in the circle of life. Henry Cole's evocative Wordless picture book is a loving tribute to living mindfully and sustainably on our precious planet. But once again, very detailed, beautiful pencil-drawn pictures showing you what happens in the life of a bag. Just a simple bag, from a tree to being broken down to sawdust, flattened into paper. Beautiful details about something that you may not have ever seen in terms of how we get bags and things that we take for granted every day. Now it's being used as a paper bag. And what was interesting is this book actually starts out with the story before the story. So that was so interesting for me to see. And here we are. The story continues. So beautiful pictures. One paper bag continues following and growing with one little boy as he grows up, goes to college, finds his wife in college, gets engaged, gets married. Paper bag is still being used as a family of his own. Son. It's a beautiful story. How grandpa comes in, spending time with his son. How the bag is traveling on through all these years. And how they're adding another heart over time and over time. The grandpa passes away, which difficult part of the story, but really beautifully done, showing how life can change and transition, making memories, and really using the things that we have in so many ways. This one is called Papa and the Pioneer Quilt. As you know, I love historical children's books that really bring you into that time of life so that you can see how people lived at that time. My papa has wandering feet. That's what Mama always says. Rebecca's papa is following his dream and taking the family west to a place called Oregon. But first they must cross wide prairies, rushing rivers, and steep mountains. Along the way, Rebecca begins collecting pieces of cloth to mark different memories, some happy and some harrowing. In their new home, Mama will help her use these colorful scraps to sew a quilt that will become a keepsake of their amazing, courageous journey. Quilts have a wonderful way of holding history, and Jean Van Leeuwen's warmly engaging story was inspired by the wandering foot quilt pattern that was popular during pioneer days. With sparkling illustrations by Rebecca Bond, this is a moving account of an early American girl's cheerful optimism as her family makes a historic journey, and at last she is thrilled to arrive at the place they will finally call home. So the pictures are also beautifully done and really gives you a sense of what was happening and the feelings of those moments, going through, packing up, moving to an unknown place in the pioneer days. The challenges they face, some illnesses on the way, but still persevering through even some dangers on their journey. They travel together as a large family with animals and all, seeking a better land for their family for the long term. Collecting pieces of cloth as well that the main character will use to make a beautiful quilt by the end of the story, reflective of all their memories and the things that they saw as they traveled to find their new home. And here it is at the end, a beautifully made quilt that she's using for her family. And the last one is by the same author. This one is called The Amazing Air Balloon. On a clear summer day in 1784, an amazing thing happened in Baltimore. An enormous balloon made of multicolored silk rose up into the sky and floated high above the outskirts of the city. Attached to the balloon was a large basket in which one passenger was riding, a 13-year-old boy who calmly waved his hat to a cheering crowd of people below. Imagine a time before airplanes and space rockets, a time when the idea of people flying seemed impossible and even absurd. It was only a little more than 200 years ago that the world's first hot air balloon was successfully launched in France, and many around the world marveled at the incredible feat. Suddenly it seemed possible that people might travel in the air. However, in America, the first person to ride in a balloon was not an important scientist. It was an ordinary boy named Edward Warren. Using many historical facts, Jean Van Leeuwen has imagined the story of young Edward's adventure, creating a lively and exciting account of a landmark moment in the history of aviation. Marco Ventura's lovely oil paintings convey a period feel of colonial America and of the excitement of this first ride in the amazing air balloon. A historical note about ballooning is included in the back of the book. Another wonderful picture book about a historical event, really taking you in and seeing what it may have been like at that time period for the characters. This creative time where people were just dreaming and working, some creative minds to one day be able to fly in the air, which helped to spark the imagination of others with regard to air travel. The pictures are also beautifully done, drawn and painted, it appears, taking you in softly during this time period. Going along as the challenges come for the characters and sub-characters in the story. The pictures are very realistic. This would be a wonderful one once you're studying this time period in history, colonial times, or even science, talking about air travel, physics, laws and forces behind gravity, all those things. This will be a wonderful tie-in. And that's what we have for our part 2 of our favorite and wholesome middle to upper elementary picture books for children. I hope this has been helpful for you. Stay tuned as I gather more favorites over time and share them with you. As always, do all that you can to keep on remaining sustainable. And until then, I will see you soon and be blessed.